With a victory of more than 4,000 votes, it's clear most Frederictonians supported Conservative Keith Ashfield. But how did the Aboriginal vote play a part? Demira has this background report.
Indeed, Aboriginal people are becoming more engaged in federal elections. In 2006, the voter turnout increased by 8% for Aboriginal people living in reserve. Part of that is a voter education campaign held by the Assembly of First Nations and Elections Canada. But the major reason is First Nations people want to be heard and want the Canadian government to pay attention to their issues.
Alan Polches is a representative of St. Mary's First Nations government. He explains to his people why it's important to cast a ballot in federal elections. He thinks this election will bring a change as more Aboriginal people engage in federal politics.
I think over in time, First Nation people have gotten involved. More and more are getting involved. As I understand, they even have a First Nations federal party out west. It hasn't filtered more to central Canada or the east yet, but certainly First Nation people are getting involved and are running for federal politics.
Polches says he closely followed debates of local candidates to see if they have a word for Aboriginal issues in their platforms. While some do,
for the First Nations, we actually want to invest $5 billion. You can actually get our First Nations platform. It's separate on our website, so I invite all of you to take a look at that. Thank you.
Others promise to correct previous government's mistakes.
He is also one of only 4 countries to not sign the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Aboriginal People. We are right there. Canada, the U.S., and the race to the bottom.
But for now, Polches says Aboriginal people feel they have been ignored by Stephen Harper's government.
I think what Stephen Harper and his Conservatives did was gloated for the last 3.5 years because they finally got into power after the Liberals. You know, prior to going into the previous election, you know, the Liberals were laid out the Kelowna Accord, which would have been really great for First Nation people. Unfortunately, that didn't get passed because the Conservatives got into power, and the Conservatives certainly have, you know, they said they were going to revisit that, but in the 3.5 years, they haven't.
First Nations people received their right to vote only 48 years ago. And now, there is the fastest growing population in Canada. When population grows, issues grow. Poverty, poor education and health are issues at stake on reserves. Polches says the federal elections is a perfect time to speak up.
We hope that a number of people will get out there, First Nation people will get out there to vote in whom they believe in the party that's going to represent them. It's been clear-cut right across the board, the parties that certainly stand for First Nation, and it's been clear-cut the parties that don't stand for First Nation.
Demira Davletiarova, Stu Journalism.